Okay.
Welcome to the Mommin Around podcast. I'm your host, Liz Mercedes, and we're here with the host of the Kinda Keeping It Together podcast, Kathleen. Hello, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. So, before we started recording, you were kind of talking about the podcast, and it's been in the works for a while. So, do you want to just talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so kind of keeping it together has been an idea for a long time. I would say definitely over 2 years. I feel like it was 2 Christmases ago that I was talking to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, it didn't even have a name. It kind of had some kind of idea, but I just knew that it was something I wanted to do. But I kind of had to work out all the details. And I kind of touch on it. I haven't released my first episode yet. I have recorded it, but I kind of touch on this in my first episode where there's also I think it's subconscious, but this kind of fear of putting yourself out there.
Totally. Yes.
I am not shy when it comes to public speaking, and I love meeting people and I love talking to people. But I think it was that mental block that I really had to get over to kind of put myself out there in another way.
Yeah.
But yes, kind of keeping it together. Do you want me to go into kind of what my plan is for it?
Yeah, go for it.
So as a mom, and I feel like even when I wasn't a mom, but especially now that I'm a mom, I feel like I'm always just kind of keeping it together. There's always something that goes wrong, or maybe not wrong, but there's always something that kind of just needs to be overcome. And some days are easier than others, but it always kind of just feels like we're just kind of keeping it together.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted a space where weekly I could come and talk to everybody about, the funny things that went on that week, the nonsense, the harder things, the serious topics, but also just kind of what life throws at you and kind of how I dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to have other moms on and maybe even dads, because I know I definitely want to have Anthony, my husband, on and have that other perspective. So I feel like it would be fun to also have dads as well. But kind of just sharing, how we keep it together week by week and the different stages of motherhood and how we, work through our marriage and parenting, because it definitely changes things in that respect. So I'm really excited. I plan on, if not this week, launching first episode, definitely by next week. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. Yeah. I feel like you just gotta do it. You just gotta rip the Band-Aid off and do it. And I look back even now, I'm only 7 episodes in, and I look back at my first episode and I'm like, ooh, cringy. But at the same time, it's you learn as you go, and you just kind of gotta do it. For me, I felt that way about YouTube. I recorded so much for YouTube, and I never ripped the Band-Aid off and just posted it. I mean, I did do some of it, but I never continuously did it, because I just felt for some reason I felt so exposed on YouTube, and I just it made me really nervous. For some reason, podcasting feels more safe to me. So that's why I feel
it feels more intimate.
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned, obviously, you're a mom, right? So you mentioned your journey. Let's talk about that a little bit. How old you were, first of all, when you became a mom, because I feel like that's unique to the moms that I've had on so far, and I kind of want to talk about your journey a little bit and how that's been.
Yeah, so I had my first at 20. I was already married. I was actually pregnant at my wedding that I didn't know. I didn't know until we came back from our honeymoon. I always wanted to be on the younger side, because my parents were a little bit older, and I saw the impact that kind of had on me growing up. So I knew I wanted, when I was younger, I always said I want my first one by 23, which is such a weird number, but that's kind of just what was in my head. So I did have
parents too. How old were your parents when they had you?
So my mom was 34, 35, and my dad was 40.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of just I knew I wanted to be younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then also on top of that too, I felt like if I was younger, then my parents could have more time with them as well.
Totally.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up getting pregnant with my first at 20. I was still in college. I was working 2 jobs. It was just grind time. I don't know. I look back now and I'm like, how did I do all of that?
Yeah.
But when you're in college and you don't really have kids, you have so much time for everything.
Totally.
So yeah, I remember we got back from our honeymoon. We were on our honeymoon and I started to feel sick. And Anthony is the one who was like, "Well, maybe you're pregnant." And I was like, "No, like no, I'm always late. Like I'm always late. I'm not pregnant." I was like, "I think it's just like the food and like the different atmosphere. Like we were in Jamaica, so like we haven't been there. Like we weren't used to eating certain kinds of things." So he was like, "No, I think you're pregnant." So when he put that idea in my head, I stopped drinking. This We were there for 11 days. This was like day like 4 or 5. When we got back home, we got home late, and that night we went out, bought a test, went back home, same night, took the test, and it lit up. And I remember like walking in to our bedroom at the time in our apartment, and I was like, it's positive. And like the emotions like were just like, I don't know, like you hear of like go to college, then get married, then
Mm-hmm.
buy a house, then have a baby. And like this just felt like so not in the steps of that everybody tells you to take.
Yeah.
So it was like a big shock. I don't really know if I guess I was excited, but I think the fear of like the unknown was like more prevalent at that time. Like I was just like, oh
Totally.
my God, like I'm still in school. We just got married. Um, you know, that was like a whole thing. Then I had my second at 22, so not much later. I
Were
got
you
pregnant.
trying for her?
We weren't not trying, if
Okay.
that makes sense. Like we weren't
Yeah.
trying to prevent it. Um, so so we weren't necessarily trying, but we also weren't not trying. Like we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
Um, so Marcus was, I think, like 15 months when I got pregnant with AJ.
Oh
I was
wow.
still breastfeeding him,
Yes, you told me
and
that. Yes.
I ended up having to now that there's like more information on it, a lot of people continue breastfeeding even through a pregnancy. But my doctor had me stop. I think it's because I was anemic and like it
Okay.
just wasn't like working for me. But I made it to like 15, 16 months with him. So I felt like accomplished because like the beginning of our breastfeeding journey was like a little rough. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I want you to talk about that.
yeah. So, all right. Well, I was 20. I had never even changed a diaper in my life. Oh.
So, as a 20-year-old, yeah, you've never changed a diaper
Yeah.
before. You don't really know what it takes to be a mom. Like, I mean, obviously, my experience is very different. We were trying for 3 years. So, like, I
Yeah.
kind of knew what I was getting into. But, like, so, okay. So, let's go into like breastfeeding and the first, like, even just the first few months of just like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
have a baby that I'm responsible for.
Yeah. Well, so that's funny you say that because I feel like now, even at 26 and like a parent of like an almost 6 and almost 4 year old, I'm still like, oh my God, I'm responsible for people. I feel so much more confident in my role now, but it's still like such a weird thing to be like, wow, I have 2 kids that I'm raising. But yeah, so I remember having Marcus in the hospital and the nurse came in. I was like, we don't know how to change a diaper. So she showed us that. And then I knew I wanted to breastfeed. I knew that that was like super important to me. I wasn't against like formula feeding. And we actually did supplement, which I'll get into in a second. But I knew that breastfeeding was something that I wanted to do. There was like no questions. So they, you know, how they come in and like they kind of help you and they show you like different like holding techniques and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like I tried so hard. I mean, the thing is I had no idea what I was doing and Marcus had no idea what he was doing because he was literally just born 3 hours ago.
Right. Also,
So
I feel like we took a breastfeeding class and everything and still had no idea what I was doing. Like
yeah.
they gave us like a dummy baby and we were like figuring things out. Still had no idea. When she was
Hmm.
born, it's like so different when you're working with like a live baby.
Yeah. Cuz like you can't make them do certain things.
Right.
Like if that makes sense. So I tried and I tried, and the pain was just like unbearable. I definitely think there's pain in the beginning, just kind of like getting your body used to that like different kind of thing that's happening. But
Definitely.
I had so much pain because we just couldn't get the right latch.
Okay.
Um, it was so bad to the point where um, once I felt like he was so like I brought him to the doctor and they're like, I think you should start supplementing because he wasn't losing weight, but they were like, I think we don't know how much milk he's getting and whatnot. And so I was like, all right, I cannot do the breastfeeding thing anymore because it hurt so bad
Mm-hmm.
that I started to exclusively pump. That ruined my mental health. Exclusively pumping is not for the weak. It is just, I will like take you through like how it would go. I would pump, I would feed Marcus. This was like at night. Like during the day it was a little bit easier, but I would pump, then I would feed the pumped milk to him. Then I would get him to sleep, then I would fall asleep. Now that sounds all quick, but it's not. You know how long all of these things take.
Yep.
Then I'd have to, before I went to sleep, I'd have to wash the pump parts. Then I'd have to wake up. I'd have to set an alarm and wake up like an hour and a half later because he was eating every 2 hours. So I'd have to wake up an hour and a half later. I'd have to pump. I'd have to feed him. Then I'd have to get him to sleep. Then I'd have to wash the pieces. And then by the time all that's done, it's basically an hour and a half later anyway.
Yep.
So a trick that I did find or heard of like while I was in this process was you don't actually have to wash the pieces every single time.
Yep.
You can put them in a Ziploc bag and pop it in the fridge because that milk that's like left in there will just stay good. So that ended up helping a lot. And then I would just wash it in the morning.
So I was doing that in the beginning, and then my lactation consultant was like, I can't recommend that. And then of course I like spiraled. I'm like, oh my God, is she gonna get sick from this milk? So I stopped doing that. But I had two different pumps. Also, I stopped using a Spectra because that was just like I use like my mom cozy basically, except for in the morning, because I can actually just like do things and have her like with me, which is amazing.
And that's the thing too, is like they have all of these things now. I feel like even 6 years ago, like those handless, like those like wireless ones weren't like big.
No.
They were just starting to kind of hit the market after I was done breastfeeding Marcus. So I exclusively pumped. This went on for 2 months. I was probably in the worst mental space of my life. I also had postpartum anxiety. That at the time, and postpartum like rage and anger, which at the time I didn't realize was those two things.
Okay.
But that went on for 2 months. At his 2 month checkup, he got shots. And you know how like they're just like moody afterwards and they just like don't feel well and whatever. So we got home and I was like, I feel like breastfeeding would comfort him. Like that would be comforting. Like you're close to your mom, whatever. So we tried. I don't know what came down on us and was like, here you go, here's what you need. But like it clicked. We got it. We did it. And from that point forward, we exclusively breastfed up until I got pregnant with AJ. When he got a little bit older, I did like start giving him like regular milk too throughout the day. But that's when he was already started solids at that point. But we did breastfeed up until I was a couple months into, maybe not a couple months, probably like, I found out with AJ pretty early on because I knew that I was like ovulating. So I knew that if we had sex, it was going to happen. So I would say probably I got pregnant with AJ in June. I didn't stop breastfeeding Marcus until like September. Okay. So a few months after, but exclusively pumping was, I knew that when I got pregnant with AJ, if for whatever reason we couldn't figure out the breastfeeding thing, that she was going to be formula fed because I could not do the pumping thing.
I'm in the thick of exclusively pumping right now. And honestly, I feel like I said, the mom cozy really helps. I feel like I've gotten my groove kind of. So I kind of like feel a little bit more comfortable now that I'm 4 months in, almost 5 months in. So like it is tough. I'm not going to say it's not. And I always say like, even if like you formula, like if I could just like let go of this little piece and like formula feed, then it would just make my life as a mom so much easier. But like it's pumping and giving her breast milk is so good for my anxiety that I can't give it up because I'm like, okay, like if she's sick, she's getting breast milk. It's okay. It's okay. Mm-hmm. Or if she gets sick, she's getting breast milk. I mean, you know, like our family like passes her around, which I love. Like I think like she totally needs that. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, she's getting breast milk. Like if someone gets her sick, it's okay. Like she's getting breast milk, you know? And like I know that breast milk isn't the end all be all.
Oh no, but it definitely has its benefits.
And that's what, you know, like in my head, what like I feel like makes me feel like better. And it doesn't make me feel like, oh my God, you can't pass her around. Like I want her to be passed around, especially because she's home with me all the time. You stayed home with your kids, right? How long were you home with them?
Yeah, so I had Marcus, and what was I doing? I don't know if I was working when Marcus was born. I don't think I was. I think I was home with him for like the first like year and a half. Actually, yeah, cuz when he was 18 months, I had him in like 3-day daycare, mostly for like socialization. Like I was still
Mhm.
home, I wasn't working. And I
Yep.
was pregnant with AJ at this point already, so there was no really plans of me getting a job at that point. Um and this was that he started in September of 2019. So he went September, actually, maybe he started in November. Either way, he went only a few months and then the pandemic started.
Okay.
And I had AJ in April of 2020, which was like height pandemic. That was
Yeah.
when we had no idea what was going on,
Yeah.
when we didn't know, when like hospitals were on lockdown. Most people weren't allowed to bring a partner. I thankfully was allowed to have one person there, but
Okay.
once we got into the hospital and into our room, we couldn't leave. Like
Yeah.
we could not leave our hospital room. And we were in the hospital for like less than 24 hours. They were like, basically like, have your baby, you're good, you're fine, you're out. Which I'm thankful
Wow.
it was. Yeah, I'm thankful it was my second, because if it had been my first, I would have felt so like overwhelmed.
Totally.
Because in those 2 days that I was there with Marcus, like we learned a lot. Like there was a like a just like a learning thing to like learn how to take care of a baby. Um,
Totally.
so I'm glad that I had to go through that with my second, because like I really feel for any of the moms who was have like that was their first experience. Like it was unbelievable. They wanted me to wear a mask during labor and delivery.
Oh my God.
And I understand, like I get it, but like I didn't. I like had it on, but I had it on my chin. I was like,
Yeah.
I am laboring a child out of my body.
Right.
I'm not wearing a mask. I was like,
That's like if everybody else has a mask on, I feel like, at that point,
yeah. And
you
they
know?
did. They all did. But I was like, I can't, there's no way that like I'm wearing this thing. You when you're For anybody who hasn't given birth, every tiny little thing can and will annoy you.
Yes.
So like that mask was like I couldn't do it. It was just not gonna happen.
Yeah. No, it's like you're overstimulated before you even like have a chance
Right.
to do anything else. My like, and then add the mask onto that, and it's just like, yeah,
It was
totally.
too much. But yeah, so I had them young. And I think now I've kind of worked through a lot of like the I don't know what I would call it. Like the I don't want to say like negative things that I felt about it, because I don't think negative is the right word, but I think it definitely affected the way that I parented. So I
Okay.
feel like when you're so young, people have a lot of opinions about the job that you're doing as a mother. So I feel like when you're younger, you have so much more to prove.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I don't necessarily think it's fair, but I do, I guess, understand it. Because you hear, oh, you're still a baby yourself, like all those things. I was married and living on my own already for like 3 years at this point.
Right.
But just like the age is like what gets people. So I felt like I had more to prove, so I was harder on myself as a parent and how I was
Mhm.
raising them and the things that I would do and the way that I would show up, and like, and it I would say I didn't even really realize how much I was affected by those things and those like ideas until probably less than like a year ago.
Really?
I yeah, I think it was like a subconscious thing. Like I think it was always there, but just not like in the forefront of my mind.
Hmm.
And I let that affect the way that I allowed people to interact with me and the kids. So for example, like if we were at my mom's and she wanted like to, I don't know, give the kids something that like I didn't think they should have, like it was like deaded. Like there was like no way, because I felt like I had something to prove. Like, no, my kids are not going to do X, Y, and Z. But it's like most kids do.
Hmm.
So it's, and like I think everything in moderation is okay, but like
Yes.
it was just, I let what I thought other people thought of me as a mom dictate how I kind of moved.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't realize it until, like I said, probably less than a year ago. And Not, I don't have any regrets because I think it just is what it is. I was
Yeah.
doing what I thought was best.
Yeah.
But if I had advice for any like young moms out there, you know what you're doing. Um, you know, like it's just kind of in you. And if you don't, and if you are struggling, there's people that you can reach out to. And there's definitely like, you know, I hope that you have people in your life that you can rely on. But I would not let what you think other people think of you to kind of dictate how you move, because that's your baby. And everybody, no matter if they have children or don't, are gonna have opinions.
Totally.
And I made a reel like a little while ago, but I feel like it's really solid advice. If they if they haven't been through what you've been through, their opinion doesn't matter because they don't know what it takes to do what you're doing. And if
Totally.
they have been through what you're going through, they're likely not judging.
Mm-hmm.
So don't really worry about the opinions because they're gonna come. And you just kind of have to like, just like, yes, you like, I like, yes them to death. Yeah, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
And then do what you got to do.
I am the queen of that, but I also think that like that's solid advice for anyone because I think that even like when you're older and you're a mom, you know, a lot of your friend, you have a lot more people giving you advice
Yeah,
because they've all like been through it and they think, you know, what they did was the best thing, which it
right.
was the best thing for their family, you know, but when you hear so many, you know, people are like, I've been through it, so I know, so I can help, like, you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like, yes, but I kind of have to figure out this journey on my own, you know?
yeah,
And so I think that's solid advice for everyone. Like you know your baby best. And that's even when I reached out for advice, the people who gave me the best advice always said, like, here's my advice, but you know your baby
yeah,
best. And you need to trust what you think is right for your baby, which is like, you know, when we started supplementing with formula, that was the right choice for us, you know, and
yep,
she's still getting breast milk and she's still getting formula and she does best on both. But it was like anyone who is a hard yes or a hard no, I almost like their advice, I mean, was because of their experience, but it was hard to almost take it fully because I'm like,
right.
but you're not giving me like the grace that I need, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that like, I think as like parents who aren't really like, who don't look at like the other side of things, like I feel like we are able to be like, yeah, that worked for us, but like your circumstance is going to be entirely different. So like what's going
Totally.
to work for you is good, is might not work for me. But I feel like the parents who don't understand that just don't take their advice. Like just like, you know where they're coming from, and
Right.
like they may be coming from a good place and they may feel like they're coming from a
Right.
good place, and I doubt that anybody would come from a bad place.
Right.
But if you know what their circumstance was and that their circumstance doesn't match yours, it's likely not going to help.
Right. And just yes them to death, like you said, because like at the end of the day, it's not worth that confrontation.
No.
You only have so much energy to give when you're a mom. And so just saying like, yes, thank you, you know, and then just
Yeah.
doing what you're gonna do anyway. Totally.
Yeah, and I think there is a place though to have those tough conversations, because I can't right now off the top of my head think of any that I've had to have, but I know that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think there's a time and a place, but like you said, there's so many other things to deal with. So the things that you can kind of just like yes to death, just do it. Like
Yeah.
for a long time I felt like if I'd done that, like then somebody's getting away with something.
Right.
But that's really not the case. It's you're preserving your peace, and that's really all that matters.
So like an example of this would be like screen time. I'm not like the biggest fan of screen time for her. And
Yeah.
then if we do screen time, like I don't like the overstimulating like shows. Now screen time is going to happen no matter what, even here because obviously I can't do this all day. Um
Yeah.
I need to put her down every now and then. But like my mom and Deb both like to show her Coco Melon, and that's not my favorite show.
Yeah.
And I won't, like in total, how many hours is she watching Coco Melon with the two of
Right.
them? Like it's like maybe an hour in like a few months, you know? So that's like something that is just not, it's not my fight to have. Like go for it. Like you're taking care of her. Like you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Whereas like when my mom was here, she was here for 2 months she would nap with her. And my mom's like a deep sleeper, and I'm like, that's something that, like, that's my one rule. Like, you
Non-negotiable.
cannot
Yeah.
nap with her, because like either she's gonna fall off the bed or you can roll over her, and I'm just not, that's
Right.
not okay. And now that she's a little like bigger and stronger, whatever, you can nap with her because she'll absolutely tell you when you're
Yeah.
hurting her. But when she was like tiny, tiny, that was like not, it was like a non-negotiable. I was like, I gotta, like, this is something I have to stand up for.
Yeah. And that took me like, and I don't know if it just like, I don't know if it stemmed from like my postpartum anxiety. Because before Marcus, I didn't have anxiety. I was not an anxious person. I did not, there was nothing that made me feel that way. As soon as I started like therapy like 3 months after he was born,
Okay.
because the absolute like rage that I felt and the
Yeah, talk about
anxiety.
that. The rage. So like
Yeah.
I've heard this is a thing, but, and my friend I think like says she has it, but I've never really gotten into the details of it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So at the time I didn't know that this is what it was. I don't even know that I thought it was anything. Like I which is weird. I know that sounds weird because like if you're used to moving in a certain way and then you start moving in a new way, you think that you'd like kind of understand it. But I feel like that's kind of out the window when you just had a baby because these hormones are just like all over the place.
Totally.
So I would I would like take my anger out on Anthony. And I would start fights over nothing. I remember we were living in Belleville at the time, and we had an apartment that had two parking spots. One was inside of a garage, and then the other one was like right outside the garage door. And typically, whoever's home first would pull into the garage, and then the other person would park behind. But sometimes it just didn't work that way. So I got home with Marcus, and we lived on like, if anybody knows like Belleville, we lived on Geralm Street. So like it was like, it's like
Busy.
a busy
Yeah.
long road. It always has like a ton of cars. So I go into our parking lot, and Anthony's in that first spot. And we're supposed to, I think I was like parking to, I don't know what I was doing, but I needed to park. And I texted him a couple of times. He didn't answer. I called him like 3 times. He didn't answer. So now like I'm fuming. I'm like, he knows I'm coming home. Why would he be there? Like just like on and on and on. So I pull out of the parking lot. I park like on Geralman Street, like realistically not super far, but I had a baby who at this point we still carried the car seat in and
Yeah.
out to like click into the base.
I'm there. I'm
And
right
yeah,
there.
so I park and I get Marcus and I stomp up our stairs. It was like 3 flights of steps. I stomp up our stairs and I open the door. I'm like, what the are you doing? And I lost my mind. And he's like, and he was like, what the hell? And like, and that was just one example. Like there was things like if he left something on the counter, if he like, it was just like the most ridiculous things that I had never really like cared about or paid attention to.
Uh-huh.
And I just like we would get in fights all of the time. And then I thought that it was him, obviously. But looking back now, like I realize like I don't know who I was. Like the way in which this rage just like I was so angry. And it was never at Marcus. Like I never had like I didn't have postpartum depression. I definitely had postpartum anxiety and postpartum anger, but that anger was never toward Marcus. Like I was
Right.
happiest when I was with him. There was like never any like bad thoughts or anything like that, even like for myself. But I was primarily around Anthony other than Marcus, and like he just took like the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Um
I wonder if that's normal, because I feel like I went through, I don't, I mean, obviously postpartum rage is normal, but I'm saying like to only have feelings towards your partner like that, because like I went through a period where I just like did not like Nick. Like
yeah,
he wasn't doing anything wrong. Like he's trying his best. Like, like I feel like part of it is like men don't have intuition, and that would just annoy me because it's like, I know what she wants, but like, why can't you figure it out? But it's like not his fault. Like he's trying
yeah,
his best.
yeah.
And I remember one night, like we fought a lot in the beginning, and I was like, he like looked at me and he's like, I feel like you just don't like me. And
Aw.
I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. So like I kind of changed my attitude towards him. But I'm saying like, it is frustrating. I feel like especially as like a mom, like, like you're going through so many hormonal changes, and they can only help, and you're sustaining the baby, right, with your
Yeah.
body, and they can only help so much. And even when they do help, like a lot of times like they just don't get it right. Like she's going through a phase where like it's only me. Like if
Yes.
yesterday, like he was trying to just hold her so I could take a shower and she was screaming. So I'm like,
Yep.
put her down on the floor, like play with her. And then finally, like she did for a little bit. But even in the shower, like I heard her screaming a little bit. And so like it does get you want like I'm not mad at her, obviously, because
Right.
she's a baby. Like, what is she gonna do? But it does frustrate me towards him. Not his fault. It's not his fault at all. But I'm like, I start to get like, are you serious? Like, you can't just help out. And he's trying, you know,
Yeah.
he's
Yes.
trying to help out, but like, there's only so much he can do.
Yeah. And I start to like now that like I'm kind of out of like the thick of it. I feel like there's always a thick of it, right? Like there's the newborn thick of it, there's like the toddler thick of it, all of it. But I feel like I'm out of that like mental space of like they say that like your body and like things don't kind of like regulate themselves until like 6 years after birth, 6 or 7
Wow.
years. Yeah. Like
Really?
hormones and everything is like still 6 or 7 years after. AJ is about to be 4. So I feel like for the most part, I feel like I'm out of that space. But something that I know I still struggle with, and I wonder if it contributed to the anger and the anxiety, is that after having Marcus, and I didn't really realize this either until I think maybe Anthony brought it to my attention. I have severe, and I'm just going to call myself out here. I have severe control issues when it comes to parenting and raising our children. So much so that I I don't want to say I didn't allow, but for the first couple years of Marcus and AJ's life, Anthony really didn't have a say in much of like how I parented and what we did around here. Part of that being because I was always home, but also because anytime he had a suggestion, I would just shoot it down. So he stopped suggesting things. And I don't think that was fair. And I also don't think that is a good way to raise your children. Number one, because fathers' input matters. They are also
Totally.
parents. And it takes, a father to and I don't want to. I know that. Okay, let me. I want to be like politically correct here.
It's okay. Say what you feel, and people can read between the lines. You know,
Okay,
you don't need to
I
censor
feel
yourself.
like boys need like a male figure to figure out like how to like grow, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah.
Um, so now we're kind of seeing the effects of my parenting and not that they're bad, like my kids are good kids, but I think had I allowed Anthony to have more of an influence, I think we wouldn't have some of the struggles that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to like redo, and it's always harder now than just to do it in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But Anthony is the reason that I started to go to therapy, because he was like, I think there's something wrong. Like
That's good.
I think that like you need to go talk to somebody because your behavior is just like not normal. Like this is just not, you're angry all the time. I was obviously like, very anxious, but I would say to this day I still have control issues.
Mm-hmm.
Um, especially when our kids are not with us. So like if
Mm-hmm.
they're staying with my mom or Anthony's mom, there are things that like both parties like do that I necessarily don't and
Yeah.
really don't like to happen. But it took me a while to kind of have that mentality that you just said, like realistically, how long is she watching Cocomelon with them? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I've come to the point now where I'm like, now there are certain non-negotiables.
Of
Um,
course, which there has to be, right?
right.
Because that's normal.
But I don't really give like my kids like juice that often. I try to like stay away from like food dyes as well. So like any of the juice that has food dyes, that's like not gonna happen. But also like the sugar, I'm like I have like this whole thing with sugar. I don't know. It's just not, you can do your own research on sugar. But I try really hard not to like the only juice we ever have in our house is orange juice. And that is also kind of like I don't want to say rationed because that seems like really severe, but like they're not drinking orange juice all day long.
Yeah.
I do have like those sugar-free like squirty things, and the ones from Aldi's have no food dyes, by the way. But so like when they're at, my mother-in-law's, they are juice drinkers, and they obviously ask for it there because they know that it's there, and she gives it to them. And for a while, I was like, but I don't give them juice, but I don't do this, and like to myself, not to her. And like a lot of conversations with Anthony later, like now here I am, and it's like, realistically, the juice that they're having at her house for a weekend, one time out of the month, is like not gonna really make a difference.
No, totally.
So,
My policy with that is if you are taking care of my kid, you do what you do. Obviously,
right.
like you said, there are non-negotiables, but like you're doing me a favor, right? And obviously, like as a grandparent, like you want to be with your grandkids, but like at
Right.
the same time, like you do what you do. Like that's your house. Those are your things that can happen at your house. They're not going to transfer to my house, but that's total whatever you do, you do.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Nick tried to pull over. He's like, well, he tried to pull one on me. I forgot what he was doing with her, and he was like, well, if you want me to take care of her, I was like, no, 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 no. I'm like, we parent together. So we
Right.
have the same like not morals, but like rules, you know?
Yeah.
And we have to be on the same page about things. I'm like, you are not doing me a favor. You are being a father.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I think too, like, you're not gonna leave your child with somebody that you don't trust, right?
Right.
So like that was like something that I had to keep telling myself is like, I trust my mom. I trust Anthony's mom. They are probably, aside from me and Anthony, the two people in this world that I trust most with our children.
Right.
So they're not going to do anything that is going to like purposefully hurt my kids.
Right.
Maybe the sugar may make them go crazy, but hey, they're at your house. You're going to have to deal with that.
Right.
So like that's something that like I really had to start telling myself too is like they have raised kids, number one, but I don't really like that excuse. Like Anthony is always like, my mom raised two kids and we're doing great. And I'm like, that's great. But there has been so many changes from
Totally.
when we were children that
Totally.
like if you don't have children, you're not really like up on.
Totally.
Um, but with that being said, I know that there would never be anything that would be done that like would be purposeful, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
And I like, I've come such a long way when it comes to like the anxiety. Like I would have like actual panic attacks about them being out of the house for the night. We were in like Red Bank one night. We went out to dinner. They were at my mother-in-law's, and we were on our way home. And I don't know if I can say this, so if I can't, just like bleep it out.
Okay.
We had smoked, so like
Okay.
I wasn't driving
No, we
because
can say it. We can talk
yeah,
about
so like we had
it.
smoked like for like on the way home. Well, I
Yeah.
did because he was driving, so I smoked on
Okay.
the way home, and I typically do. So usually I don't have like adverse effects. It doesn't really bother me.
Right.
I don't know if that kind of contributed to this panic attack. I'm not really sure because like I guess I was like too much in my head. But like I had a full blown like almost not breathing panic attack.
Wow.
And Anthony was like really great. He was driving, but he was like you have to breathe. He was rubbing my back. He gave me water, and he's like, if you want, and now Red Bank to like my mother-in-law's house, my mother-in-law also lives in Lyndhurst, is like an hour. Like it's
Yeah.
not close. And we were
Yeah.
coming back down by us. So like we were even further. And he's like, if you want, we can drive up right now. But like, even though it's irrational, you can't help
Oh
but
yeah.
feel it.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So like
Yes.
in my head, I'm like, I can't go to your mom's because I don't want her to think that I don't trust her, because I do trust her. I do
Mm-hmm.
trust her with our children. I just, regardless of that fact, I still can't help but feeling the way that I do. And I think that was hard for Anthony to understand because for him, he's very
Totally.
logical. And for
Totally.
me, I'm very like feelings. So
Totally. Yes. And they don't have that, like, well, it's hormones for us too, but like also, like, they don't get that like anxiety. I remember one day I would like check things almost like OCD wise, like when
yeah,
I was in the thick of like postpartum anxiety, and I would check things over and over again. I would make my mom check, I would make Nick check, and I made Nick like get up out of bed like 3 times.
yeah,
And he's like, he finally snapped at me, which I totally get. We're sleep deprived. Like, it's
yeah,
yes. And I looked at him and I'm like, do you think I want to be like this? Like, do you
right.
think I like am like, yes, this is
We don't
exactly
enjoy
how I
it.
want to be? No, like you know it's irrational. You know it's not logical, but you cannot help it. And like something in your brain tells you, like, if I don't check this for like the 10th time, it could be
Yes.
off or something. And so yes, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned smoking. I don't think we've ever actually had a conversation about this. So obviously I'm breastfeeding, so I'm not smoking right now,
Yeah.
but like previously to her, I have, and I just want to talk about like how that experience has been being a mom and smoking.
Yeah. So, me and Anthony kind of have like this joke because I guess by frequency, you can consider me a quote unquote pothead, but I don't consider myself a pothead. And he like laughs at me because he's like, you smoke every night. You are a pothead. And I'm like, but I don't have to smoke every night. So, like,
Right.
for me, that's like the distinction. I don't know. So, with that being said, I started smoking. Well, okay. I would very, like, occasionally, like, not more than like a couple times a month, smoke after um Marcus, but I was still breastfeeding. So, like, it would kind of be like a pump and dump situation.
Okay, so I've looked this up because I was a pothead. Like I fully admit that I was a pothead before having her.
Yeah.
I was like wake and bake, like 2020, like really like had me in for it. Like, but like it was like just like a mood stabilizer for
Yeah.
me, you know? And so yeah, so I feel like when I had her, obviously I didn't do it the whole time I was pregnant, but when I had her, I was like, oh, let me look up like if I can breastfeed and smoke and like pumping and dumping and all
Yeah.
of that. And it stays in your system for 6 days.
Yes. But I am in a Facebook group. It's called Breastfed Canna Babies. Um,
Okay.
and these are women who like actively smoke like all day long and still breastfeed. And apparently, there's tons of studies that show there's really not much going through milk.
Okay.
I haven't done my own research. I've kind of only like read the research that has been done by these women and then kind of like, took that as it came.
Right.
With that being said, I never felt like fully comfortable to like smoke and also breastfeed in the way
Right.
that like some of them do. Um yeah. So so after Marcus it was like very like minimal.
Right.
Then um I would say I didn't really start to smoke like every day. Probably Anthony got like a med card before weed was legal in Jersey where you can just go to any dispensary and just buy whatever you wanted. He got a med card because excuse me, I'm like again the anxious type, so I would not smoke street weed because I was always afraid that like
Same. Same.
something would be in it.
Same.
So
So
I
I
told
got
him
a
the
medical
only
card for my migraines.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he got one for like neck pain and shoulder pain or whatever. So that's the only way that I would smoke is if it was like from the dispensary.
Yes.
And it started with like Anthony would smoke like pretty much whenever, and then I would smoke like occasionally with him. And it would then it started to just become every night. Um, I am really not like a functioning high. So I cannot smoke in the morning, I cannot smoke throughout the day. I don't smoke if the kids are awake. Anthony, I maybe I shouldn't say this, but Anthony can smoke and like go drive a car. Like
Yeah. No,
he
some
can
people
do
can. Yeah.
yeah. He doesn't smoke like before work because like he's in sales, he can't really like do that.
Yeah.
But like on the weekends, like he pretty much just smokes whenever and like he can function throughout the day. Not for me, I can't do that. So I only smoke once a night after the kids are asleep, and if they're sick I don't smoke because I just kind of feel like I need to be clear-headed to like just take
Okay.
care of them if they need me.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I don't know. I just like I feel like at the end of the day, it kind of and I think it's because I have anxiety that I enjoy smoking so much
Yeah.
because like I can kind of just turn it all off
Yes, it
even if
quiets
it's for like a couple
everything.
hours.
Totally. It quiets everything except for me edibles because that makes everything louder. So I will
I
get
can't
panic
do
attacks.
edibles.
Yeah.
I can't do them. I did them one time and they made me like angry. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not all edibles, but
No.
like it was such a bad experience that it's just not I would rather smoke, which is not great cuz like I do worry about like my lung health, but it's just I can't do edibles. I can't do it.
Yeah, no. They make me super 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 paranoid like
Yeah.
really bad. So yeah, totally.
She's I don't consider myself a pothead, but I guess by definition you can say that I am. I don't know. And it's weird too, because like the kids know, like the kids know that we smoke weed. I don't know that they necessarily know what weed is.
Right.
Um, Actually, I tell them that I don't smoke weed because they never see me, so they don't know. But they know that Anthony does, and like
Okay.
we have it out. Like it's
Right.
just
Yeah.
not like where they can get it, but like
Right.
they know what it is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's such a weird feeling because like I never thought that I would be a pothead. That was just never like I've never done a single drug in my life. I don't know if you consider weed drugs, but I have never done a single drug. I've never smoked a cigarette. Like I rarely drink alcohol. So it's like I never thought that I would be a
Yeah.
pothead. So like now me and Anthony again will joke and we'll be like, we're the pothead parents. Like we are the parents. And like the other night he was rolling on like Marcus's homework. And I was like, maybe not that. Maybe not that. Like I have to send that to school tomorrow. So like maybe we don't do that.
That's
But
so
I
funny.
think like and you know, I didn't really realize because like I can stop at any point. Like I don't think weed is even is weed even addictive?
I think I was addicted to it.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I feel like I can stop at any point. So I
I
don't
think it
feel
just
that I
depends on your personality too,
yeah,
right? Like,
but I didn't realize how much that I depend on it until I got pneumonia because while I had pneumonia and I was on antibiotic, I wasn't smoking because my lungs were already like not functioning great. And I could not fall asleep. I could
mhm.
not. It was the worst sleep I ever had in my life. Um, no, so I feel like I can stop at any point, and I have. Like, there's been times where like I just stopped just because like I wanted to be like more functional at night and things like that.
I guess, like, if you say it like that, yes, I could stop. Like, I did stop. Obviously, I
Yeah,
haven't picked it up since, I had
but
her,
like
so.
I didn't realize how much like I really I don't want to say depend on it because I don't know if it's really a dependency, but how much like I enjoy the effects from it
Yes.
because when I was smoking, I mean when I had pneumonia and I wasn't smoking, I I I couldn't sleep. I could not fall asleep. It was like my body just it didn't know what to do. It was
Yeah.
just so bizarre. And but I will say, I didn't smoke for like 10 or 11 days because that's how long the antibiotic was. By day like 6, I was like back to normal.
That's
Um,
good.
but I feel though that that's probably because I only do smoke once a day. I feel
Right.
like if somebody is smoking like throughout the day and more frequently, it probably would be harder to stop that quickly.
I mean, I stopped kind of overnight too. So we transferred her on December 31st. And I had here it's illegal. So I just had a pen. In our apartment you can't smoke. So like just a pen, like no one can really tell. So I was like on that thing all day. And then once we did her transfer December 31st, I went to my sisters and they were all doing it and I didn't do it and that was it. Like never
Yeah,
again. Like I haven't picked it up in since December
yeah.
31st, 2022.
How is that being there where it's illegal?
I
Like,
mean,
do you
I
still
don't
find it?
I
Well, I
don't
guess
know because I've been
yeah,
pregnant basically the whole time. So,
yeah.
and before that, you can because in Austin it's decriminalized. So you can
Oh, okay.
definitely find it. People like sell it like I guess illegally, but like it's not. It's just like a slap on the wrist, so it's
Yeah,
like fine. No, but so you can get it in Austin though. So yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, but I haven't done it since obviously 2022, and then we just kind of went through everything we had, and now we just don't have anything.
Do you feel like once you're not breastfeeding, you're gonna start back up?
So I yes, but I was like anxious to finish so I could start again. And then I don't know, like over the last like probably month, I'm like, I actually feel like I don't know, like I will do it again, obviously eventually. It's just inevitable. But I also feel like I don't like specifically need it the way I used to, you know?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't get migraines really anymore, thank God.
Oh,
Um,
good.
and so that was like a big part of it. And then I'm like nervous that like my anxiety will get worse instead of better
Yeah,
because like it's been so bad with her. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's better, but I'm just nervous that it would get worse.
yeah.
So I don't know. Yes, I will, but I don't know the frequency or what that's
Right,
gonna look
right.
like. And also, like, I'm planning on breastfeeding her. I was gonna stop at 6 months, but now I think I've decided I'm gonna do a year.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm gonna. I mean, let's see what happens after you send me the Facebook group, but I don't think
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna do
yeah.
it while I'm breastfeeding,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, with
because of
age.
anxiety.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that's part of the reason I didn't either, because I was like, also because I didn't do my own research. Maybe if I had done my own research and really found like reputable sources and like found out like concrete evidence that like there's really no effect, maybe I would have, but I didn't really feel like putting it wasn't important enough to me to put that much time and energy into like looking it up.
Yeah.
Um and I breastfed AJ for like 2.5 years. So there was like,
Wow.
yeah, there was like a long period there where like I just didn't. I didn't stop breastfeeding her until, so I was home with, I mentioned before how I was home with Marcus until he was like 18 months. Then he did a couple months before the pandemic. Then all the daycare shut down. And then
Right.
once they opened back up, AJ was born. And I was like, I'm not sending him to daycare to bring something home to my newborn.
Right.
So then we stayed home until Marcus was 3.5 and AJ was 1.5. And that was when I ended up getting a job in the daycare that they, like, I sent them
Oh,
to.
like,
Oh, so yeah. So I breastfed AJ for like 2.5 years because she started to go to daycare when she was a year and a half. And I did not stop until like a year after that.
wow,
Um,
that's crazy.
yeah, it was, I didn't breastfeed her throughout the day, obviously, because
Right.
she was already eating food at this point. But like as soon as I picked her up, she would ask, she would say, boo, boo. I
Oh.
think she was trying to say boob, honestly.
Yeah.
So she'd be like, boo, boo. And so as soon as I picked her up, if I saw her throughout the day, as soon as we got home for bed in the morning, when she didn't feel good, like literally pretty much any time, excuse me, we were together, aside from being at school, we were still breastfeeding.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I don't know why. I think it naturally, like we were naturally kind of weaning because school took up so much of our time.
Right.
Like I was working like long days, like where I was, we were short staffed. So like I was pretty much there from like open till close.
Wow.
Um, and then at that point, we were already like 2.5 years in. So I kind of felt ready. A big part of me, I know this is going to sound like ridiculous because like my kids are almost 6 and 4 now. I wish I would have like kept pumping like after she was done breastfeeding. Like I wish,
Really?
yeah, like either to donate the milk, even to just kind of like preserve some of it in the freezer. That way, like when they were sick, I had like something to give them.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I wish I would have just, even if I did it like once a day, just to kind of keep that stuff flowing,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm completely dried up now.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I don't, we are likely not having any more. So
I was just gonna ask, do you think you'll ever have any more kids?
here's the thing. And this is like everybody's favorite line is, you're still so young. Yes, I am. But my kids, again, are going to be 6 and 4, which means if I got pregnant today, AJ and the next one would have almost a 5 year age gap. And that's too much for me. Like
Okay.
I I will be 38 moving Marcus into college if he decides to go to college. And I will
Wow.
be 40 moving AJ into college.
Wow.
Yeah, to think of, and I don't want this to sound like, I don't think of kids as a setback, but to like set myself 5 years back from that
Yeah.
is not something I feel like I'm willing to do, because I sacrificed my younger years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sacrifice my younger years and my older years.
Totally. Totally.
So, and Anthony doesn't want anymore. I did want another one, but no, I didn't. Here's like the thing: it's like kind of like a catch-22. I didn't want one right after I had AJ. Like I didn't want one within those first 2 years, and I don't want one now because it's been too long. So it's just kind of like, it just wasn't. I don't think it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
Do when we are in a position to, like when we have like an extra bedroom and we have a house and things like that, because we're still in an apartment, I really would like to foster.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of fostering is obviously to reunification with families,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like if we are meant to adopt, like that kind of happen, yeah,
You got something to
that'll
say
kind of
about that?
happen like naturally.
Yeah.
Um, but I really do want to foster. So I feel like maybe that will kind of give me that thing that I feel like maybe I wanted a third, but maybe I don't. I don't know.
Right.
Do
Yeah.
you guys want another?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we went through a lot to have her.
Right.
So we would have 10. We always say we would have 10 if we could. So I don't know. So if it happens naturally, great, but I'm not going through IVF again.
Yeah.
That's not happening. So yeah. So we do, but we'll see. And then, we've always talked about adopting, like even before we knew we had problems. So
Yeah.
that's always an option too.
Yeah. Oh. AJ's, like I said, about to be 4, and she still wants me to hold her like all day long. The good thing is that she's on like the smaller side, so like she's really not like as big as like a 4-year-old typically is.
Yeah.
But my goodness, like it doesn't end. Even Marcus at 6, and he's like half of me, if not more, still wants me to pick him up. So I'm like,
oh my God, so cute.
I know. I think about like, I feel like social media now, because like like you can hear from so many people at like a moment's notice.
Yeah.
So many people, and I mean, it's like a thing everybody knows that like time goes so fast, and like there's going to be one day where you pick them up and put them down for like the last time.
Yeah.
So like the fact that they still want me to pick them up, like I'm going to.
Totally. Yeah. I agree with that. Even her contact naps, I'm like, it's not happening forever. So it is what it
I
is.
know.
Like, luckily I'm in a position where I can do contact naps with her. So
Yeah. So are you working now?
No.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, not for lack of trying. I did try, but we're just kind of making it work for now.
Yeah. No, I feel yeah. And that's the thing that like I serve a few nights a week. I I consider myself a stay-at-home mom because financially I don't contribute to our household. But I do serve like a few nights a week just to like honestly have like human interaction and have something other than like just being home all day, and also to have like my own money, where I like to call it fun money, where like I can save it if I do want to save, where I can save it, but also like I can go get a coffee and I can go take the kids to lunch or whatever.
I'm struggling right now with both those things. So like I talked about it on yesterday's podcast, that will be last week's podcast when people are listening. But so first I'm like, it's solidarity all day, me and her, like solitude, not solidarity. So like most of the time the only adult interaction I have is with Nick at the end of the day, and he's been interacting all day, so he's not like super like let me get home and like talk and have like all these conversations, so that's one. And then and then 2, like I have literally made my own money since I was in 8th grade. In 8th grade I altar served, and so I made money that way.
You got paid for altar serving?
Funerals and weddings, you would get paid $10.
I altar served. I never got paid.
Yeah, you would get paid $10 for funerals and weddings. And then after I altar served, then I worked at a pharmacy, and then I worked at a pharmacy, and then I worked at a Rita's, and then I worked doing makeup, and then I became a teacher. So like literally like I always made money. There's never been a time like other than when I was literally a child that I didn't make money. And so like I'm like struggling with that. Like, Nick is like great in the sense that he's like, I got this, like we'll figure it out, like don't worry about it. But I'm struggling with it like personally,
like mentally, like that. And that's the thing too, is like I feel like I never had like a big girl job because I had Marcus when I was still in college, but I started working at 16. I worked at Home Goods, I worked at my school's bookstore, I was working 2 jobs at one point. So it was like really hard mentally, I guess, to be like accepting of Anthony's money. Like, and not that like I feel like that doesn't make sense. Maybe that doesn't make sense because like he's always been the one to pay for our rent and pay for things like that. But when I was working, I paid like the electric and I paid the TV. We kind of like split things. So when I first like really wasn't making my own money, even just to have money, like if I needed gas, like it was like really hard. Like I'm like, I don't want your money, even though our money is our money. I'm like, I don't want your money. Like I don't want to have to depend on you.
Or like if like I want to do something like, not get a coffee, I guess, but like if I want to like, I don't know, like get my nails done or something, like obviously like it's our money, but like I also feel like I have to ask like, hey, is it cool if I get because it's not
Yeah,
like we're making like so much money that like we're like super like,
right.
lavish and all that, so like I do feel like I have to ask like, hey, is it in the budget to like get my nails done this week? And then I'm like, ugh, I hate that.
Yes, it feels it because you know what it feels like very like this.
Yes.
And like that feeling is weird.
Yes.
Um
And Nick is never saying like Nick will literally never say no. Like I don't think
right.
he knows how to say no to me. Like I got my hair done here and then we went home and I was like I'm going to get my hair done again. And then he was like, okay, and like hair is like not cheap, especially because I
Yeah.
have like blonde in my hair, right? And he was like, okay. And then I was like, wait, I just got my hair done. Like, why am I going to get my hair done again? And he's like, oh, I was thinking that, but if that's what you wanted to do, like he'll
Yeah.
never say no. But at the same time, it's like yeah, there's like that power struggle that you're like,
Yeah. And I think that like for like me now, like I mean, our like mine and Anthony's relationship has like evolved so much. Like we've been together 10 years, so like it's like evolved so much. And where we are now at this point, especially where he's at in his career, and how I am like I stay home, so I do pretty much everything here. Um, he's really good at number one, never making me feel like I have to like he's like if you need anything you just have to like ask me like and
yeah,
it's not like ask for permission, it's
right.
ask
It's
like
like so I can help. Yeah.
right. And then number two, he's really good at making me feel like the job that I do is just as important as his. And something that he likes to say is, yeah, so like I said, he never makes me feel like weird if I ever like need money. But the other thing that he like really does is really makes me feel like how important and vital I am to our household. So
Yeah.
like I feel like there's so much judgment around stay-at-home moms. Like for people who don't understand what stay-at-home moms do, it's like you get to sit home all day, you get to like paint with
Right.
the kids, like you get to, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I do get to do those things because that's part of it. But I'm also like, we were just talking about it. We were recording an episode last night, how like a lot of people like to argue like whose mental load is heavier. Um, and I think both are heavy, but in different ways. So Anthony's mental load is if I don't perform at work, I can't provide for my family. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if like any kind of like, not that this is like likely to happen, but if somebody breaks in the house, he's going to be the one to take care of that. Like
Totally.
he's a protector, provider. I am nurturer and like everything else for our family.
Yes.
So he is really good at making me feel like my role is important and something that he says all of the time, because there's been moments where I'm like I feel like I don't do anything, I feel like I'm useless, I feel like I don't contribute, and he's like if you didn't do what you did I would not be able to do what I do.
It's
You
true.
facilitate me being able to provide and take care of our family because of the way that you take care of our home and our kids.
It's true.
So I feel like having a partner who believes that what you do is like important in your
Mm-hmm.
role in your house, in your family, as a wife, as a mother, is so important.
I agree
Because
with that.
not that he ever made me feel that that wasn't the case, but only more recently have we started talking about like our roles
Mm-hmm.
and like our roles in society and within our home and like what we contribute and whatever. And so I feel like when you know your partner appreciates and respects the things that you do, because we do a lot,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it feel not so icky, I guess is the word, to like if you need their I like I said I do serve, so I don't really ever ask Anthony for money, but if I ever did it wouldn't feel like it used to, because now yeah I'm home and I'm not making money, so you can go make as much money as you can so that our kids have whatever. So I think I feel I feel bad for women who are in a position where they face a ton of judgment for being stay-at-home moms, because I feel like
Totally.
it is still taboo in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not so much because there aren't women who don't want to, but a lot of people need a two-income household these days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, luckily enough, like Anthony can support us, and I don't need to contribute financially. But I know that's not the reality for many, and so I do feel like I know what my privilege is, and I do feel like very lucky to be in a position like this. But I could, for the women who are home and who maybe, I feel like there's all like these different kinds of things, right? There's women who are home who are appreciated by their partner. There's women who are home and not appreciated by their partner. There's women who are home and where their husband makes enough money where we don't really worry about money in like a way that may other people may. So there may be stay-at-home moms whose family is still struggling, maybe living paycheck to paycheck. And I feel like all of us are going to have a different experience of being a stay-at-home mom because our situations are different.
Totally.
So I really do feel for people in a position or women in a position in any other position than, you know, mine, because I've realized the privilege in it. But anyway, I just went off on a tangent. I think that having a partner who really appreciates you makes you feel like your work is worth it. And even if they don't, your work is still worthy, you know, and
Yes,
important.
definitely. Yeah. I think that's a good way to wrap up the episode. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So where can everyone find you?
Okay, so you can find me. My main Instagram account is Kat Maldonado, but the last O is a 0. So it's going to be KATMALDONAD0. And then the podcast Instagram account is Kinda Keeping It Together Pod. So just KINDA, Keeping It Together POD. I also do have a TikTok. I'm not really active on there. I feel like I really do need to like get into it more because I feel like it's easier to reach more people there than it is on Instagram. The algorithms are just different. But that is going to be the same as my Instagram. It's going to be KATMALDONAD0. And same thing for, I haven't launched the podcast yet. But that is also going to be kind of keeping it together. No pod at the end.
When are you launching it?
If not this week, definitely next week.
So the 7th?
It's going to be Thursdays. Is today Thursday?
Yes, today's Thursday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be on the same day, hopefully, as this episode.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. Oh, that would be really fun. Yeah. So, yeah. But I really want to get it out before. I think the intro one I might get out over the weekend and then next Thursday, like release like the real first episode. But either way, you can find me there. And there's just, it's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. I think I've always I've always felt like I was like meant for something like bigger. And I don't mean bigger like A-list celebrity kind of stuff, but I always felt like I was meant to create some kind of community and like foster that kind of like togetherness. So I feel like this is really gonna get that going.
Totally, totally. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Thank you for listening to all our listeners. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. Leave a comment because it bumps us up in the ratings. And then also go find Kat on all of the social medias that she mentioned. And we'll see you next Thursday. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right.